All right, thanks for checking in on this Monday morning. 49ers are on the practice field, but a little bit later today around noon. So 2-hour practice, then Kyle Shanahan and selected players will speak with the media. But today we're going to talk about my 53-man roster projection after the first preseason game. Again, this is meant for educational purposes and entertainment purposes only. It is not necessarily an accurate portrayal of what the coaches think, what the personnel department thinks. So I don't always have to make that disclaimer, but I will, because last time there were some people who were like, what are the 49ers thinking? Why isn't this guy going to make the team? Or why isn't that guy going to make the team? So this is just solely my opinion. But first off, I do want to address the 49ers offensive line. I know the offensive line is a reason for concern. It's constant consternation among the 49ers fan base. And coming out of that game on Saturday, a lot of talk about the offensive line as well. So we're going to kind of break down what I saw, in the sense that, of course, only one of the projected 49ers starters was on the field for that game against the Broncos. That was Ben Barch. He looked like he held up pretty well. A lot of focus on Spencer Burford, who right now appears to be the 49ers backup left tackle. That's where he's been working. They haven't necessarily done a swing tackle type of thing because they have Austin Pleasance now working solely on the right side and Burford solely on the left side. There's also Andre Dillard, who the 49ers picked up, a former first-round pick of the Eagles, and he's kind of bounced around the NFL a little bit. But the 49ers signed him in the offseason, but he hasn't been ready to play yet. So I don't necessarily understand all of the discussion about the offensive line, because you look at the bottom line. The end result is that the 49ers always seem to have a top 4 or 5. Last year, they're fourth in yards gained throughout the season. They always seem to have a top 5, 6, whatever that is, offense in the NFL as far as yards produced. Sometimes they've been number 1 here in the past 5 or 6 years under Coach Kyle Shanahan. So the offensive line must be doing something right, and especially when you consider last year, no Ayuk, Deebo Samuel's production up and down, no McCaffrey, all kinds of injuries at the running back position. So I kind of think that the 49ers offensive line gets a bad rap among the fan base. And, are they the best offensive line in football? Of course not. Are they the worst? Of course not. Where are they? And I would put them somewhere, in that 10 to 12 range, or top 10, the bottom half of the top 10 or top half of the next 10. And that's where I think they'll be again this year, with the opportunity to be a little bit better just because of the continuity. Offensive line are always better when they play together. And so with 4 of the 5 guys returning, I don't see the 49ers offensive line as being an area that is going to blow up the season or anything like that. And what's also kind of telling is that last year they had the best backup left tackle in the history of pro football. Now, I say that a little bit in jest, because Jalen Moore was not considered one of their top 5 offensive linemen. And when Trent Williams went down, he moved into a starting role. The reason I say it kind of in jest is because I don't think there's ever been a backup left tackle in the NFL or backup offensive lineman in the NFL for 4 seasons who got the kind of contract that the Kansas City Chiefs awarded him in the offseason, with $15 million a year over 2 years. So teams around the league seem to think that the 49ers offensive linemen are good. You can see that by Aaron Banks and the kind of contract that he signed with the Packers, and then Jalen Moore with the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Spencer Burford game, and I am of the opinion that not everything's going to be perfect all the time, but good players have to adjust. and they have to make something out of nothing in a lot of cases. And so I'm going to start off with that because football is so much about what you don't see, and it's kind of the responsibility of the player to be able to not make you notice when something went horribly wrong. So Kyle Shanahan was asked about the offensive line, and I think specifically about Spencer Burford in that 3-play stretch against Nick Bonito of the Denver Broncos. So how Kyle Shanahan broke it down was the first play where there was a pressure or sack was on the tight end. That was Luke Farrell not getting across the formation quick enough. And so that was not on the offensive tackle, Spencer Burford. The next 2 plays, Shanahan said, 49ers went on a quick count, and they were lined up wrong. And so Bonito was basically in a position to jump the snap count and beat whoever was supposed to be in front of him to the quarterback. He did notice that it was a tough assignment for Burford. And so I don't think, like, from the 49ers standpoint, he was downgraded for any of those plays. Said on the 3rd down play, it was a bust by a player who should have been on the outside of Burford. That's why he was expecting help there. So he was set up inside. And when Bonito got to the outside, there was really no one there to account for him. So the way that Shanahan explained it was that those plays in a row were unfair to Burford because of how the 49ers diagrammed those plays and then how they actually happened, which was not how they diagrammed those plays. All right, so that's the quick breakdown, my quick thoughts on the offensive line. I'm sure I'll be talking a lot more about the offensive line as time goes on. But today at NBCSportsBayArea.com, I posted my projection of the 49ers 53-man roster. So if you've been watching, it won't surprise you that right now I have 2 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. Curtis Rourke will be on the non-football injury list the entire season. I just don't see why the 49ers would keep a 3rd quarterback on their 53-man roster unless there's somebody who gets cut somewhere around the league that they feel like they absolutely have to have. But right now, I would say that all things being equal, either Tanner Mordecai or Carter Bradley could be on the practice squad, and the 49ers could just roll right on. I raised the number of running backs the 49ers keep to 6, with McCaffrey, Juszczyk, Isaac Grindo, Patrick Taylor, Jordan James, and Corey Kiner. And a couple of these guys are kind of like stash them and keep them around for maybe later in the year or next year. That would be Jordan James and Corey Kiner. So a little bit heavy on running backs, and that's a position that basically benefits from keeping the 2 quarterbacks. So would you rather keep around Corey Kiner, or would you rather keep around Tanner Mordecai? And in my mind, it's Kiner. Wide receivers, right now, I'm projecting that Ayuk starts on PUP and Demarcus Robinson starts off on the NFL suspended list. So I would have the 49ers keeping 5 wide receivers at the beginning of the season: Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Jordan Watkins, Russell Gage, and Jacob Cowing. The kind of interesting thing to me is, could there be a competition for the return game between Cowing and Junior Bergen? Junior Bergen made a heck of a move on that punt return. So is it possible that Bergen could take Cowing's spot on the 53-man roster? I think that's unlikely, but I do think it's in play. Or do they keep both Cowing and Bergen and maybe release Russell Gage? Also in play, because Gage could probably pass through to the practice squad. And if that were the case, for the first couple of weeks, they could elevate Gage to have him suit up for games, those games opening the season against Seattle and then on the road against New Orleans. And then they'd figure that, assuming Robinson is suspended for 3 games, and the 49ers could bring him back for week 4. Tight ends, I have them keeping 4 tight ends. Again, a lot of competition here. Kittle and Farrell are, by the way, Farrell that I mentioned, he was the one who missed that block on the first sack. Kittle, Farrell. I have Braden Willis and Jake Tonjes, although I would put almost a 33% chance with all those guys, or what would it be, 67% chance on Willis, Tonjes, and Dwelly, because those three guys are battling for two spots. The offensive line, as I mentioned, the starters are pretty much set with Trent Williams, Dominic Pooney, Colton McKivitz, Jake Brendel, and Ben Barch. I think the next two guys are set with Spencer Burford and Nick Zakel. And then Austin Pleasance, I have him as the 8th offensive lineman, and they can keep several more on the practice squad, and when needed, bump them up. And that list includes guys like Matt Hennessy, Connor Colby, Drew Moss, Drake Nugent, Isaiah Prince, Andre Dillard is somebody that we'll see when he rolls around, when he's ready to go. But that's how I see the offensive line, keeping 8 offensive linemen. All 8 of those guys would suit up on game days. And then they'd have 3 more offensive line probably on the practice squad. The defensive line, I have 9 guys, and it's a little bit rough. I do put Yetur Gross-Matos on PUP with the knee issue. He hasn't practiced yet. IR, Kevin Gibbons, he's going to miss several games into the season. So, initially on my 53 projection, it was Kalia Davis or Sebastian Valdez. Now I think they can keep both of those guys. I think both of them have really performed well, good rotational pieces, backups who could be needed after, some injuries, and all defensive lines have injuries during the course of a season. But my 9 guys, Nick Bosa, Mikel Williams, Alfred Collins, CJ West, Bryce Huff, Jordan Elliott, Sam Okawanu, and then Valdez and Davis. Guys like Robert Beal and Jonathan Garvin, Evan Anderson, those guys are fighting for spots as well. Linebackers, 6 linebackers because of the need for those guys on special teams as well. I think 3 of them are absolute locks: Fred Warner, D. Winters, and Nick Martin. Yes, Nick Martin, despite the rough game on Saturday night. If you didn't see my last video, kind of what happened the day after video of that game, check that out and hear what Nick Martin had to say about his performance. And then the 3 backup guys / special teams guys, and nothing is in stone quite clearly, but Luke Gifford, Tatum Bethune, and Curtis Martin. I think that Chaz Surratt and Stone Blanton are still in the mix. Surratt probably more so than Blanton. So that's how I see the linebackers. The cornerbacks, also 6 cornerbacks. Chase Lucas, definitely on the radar after that game he had on Saturday night. I have Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green, Trey Brown, Upton Stout, Dallas Flowers, and Chase Lucas. Flowers with the length and his athleticism, I give him the edge right now over Darrell Luter and Jacob Robinson. But again, plenty of time for those guys to make the move, in my mind. Maybe they already have in the estimation of the coaches, but those are the 6 cornerbacks. The 4 safeties: Jair Brown, Jason Pinnock, Marquis Siegel, and then I have Richie Grant over Saran Neal. That'll be a special teams type of situation. So 4 safeties with Malik Mustafa beginning the season on the PUP list. The thing with Marquis Siegel is he looks so darn good in practices and then in the game carrying that over. I just wonder now if he isn't putting himself in position to challenge for a starting job week 1. I've always kind of thought that with Mustafa being out, probably, early in the season, that Pinnock and Brown were kind of the no questions asked starters, but man, Siegel's making quite a run. And then special teams, right now, it's very clear cut. It's Jake Moody, Thomas Morstead, John Weeks, long snapper, Morstead the punter. I've said from the beginning, it's Jake Moody against Jake Moody. So even though there's not another kicker in camp, the 49ers certainly reserve the right and could bring in a kicker from the outside. Greg Joseph is still bouncing around out there. He doesn't have a job with another team. So it is Jake Moody's job, unless Jake Moody either does something in the games, loses his confidence, misses a couple kicks. But right now, I'd say pretty clear cut that Jake Moody is the starter or the kicker for the 49ers when the season begins. So there's my 53-man roster. If you missed any of it, go over to NBCSportsBayArea.com and check it out. And love to hear your comments, who to watch, who should make it, who shouldn't make it in the comments below. I'm sure there will be a lot of comments about the offensive line as well. Like I said, later today, the 49ers practice, so we'll have more content right here and also at NBCSportsBayArea.com. So thanks for watching, and that is it for now.